Hansen is a well-known playboy from a wealthy family. He treats every girlfriend kindly and gives them whatever they want. Except for marriage. Everyone knows that he has been unwilling ever since he broke up with his first love. So he can't take the relationship with other girls to that stage. In the 5th month when I was with him, my family was pressuring me a great deal. So I had to say goodbye to him. I heard that your first love is coming back too. Congratulations. He smiled and said, yes. That night, his friends held a bachelor party for him. The venue was large and lively. Someone mentioned me. Brother Hansen. I think I just saw Sienna. There was a really handsome guy next to her. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was gossiping and making a great fuss. But Hansen suddenly got angry. He crushed out the cigarette in his hand and sneered. She was the one who said we should be together. And she was also the one who proposed the breakup. How can there be such a good thing in the world? When Hansen and I first got together, his friends made a bet. It was a big bet on whether our relationship could last more than 1 month. He comes from a prominent family, and is well known. When I first met him, my roommate said to me, Hansen in the North City is no ordinary person. He's not easy to mess with. But this Hansen is a bit different. I heard that he's easy to court. He never loses his temper with girls and parts amicably with every girlfriend. This was no lie. But between us, actually there was no such thing as who courted whom. At that time, I was in my 2nd year of postgraduate study. I was doing a research project with my supervisor and needed an out-of-print English monograph, which was very difficult to find. I posted a lot on the internet, but all in vain. Just when I thought there was no hope, finally someone replied. The tone was a bit cynical yet rather sincere. My old man seems to have it. Contact me if you want it. I'll just do a good deed. I contacted him right away. After that, to thank him, we met twice more and got along very happily. On the last occasion, he stood under the street lamp, with handsome features. For some reason, he raised his eyebrows and asked me, shall we meet again in the future? In the future. As spring goes and autumn comes, year after year, will we meet again? The moonlight was cold. It was a beautiful scene at a good time. If I said no, it would inevitably be disappointing. As if possessed, I smiled and, not to be outdone, asked him, I heard that you're easy to court. Is it true? He looked at me and couldn't stop smiling. Then you can have a try. When I was young and inexperienced, meeting such a person, who was carefree, composed and powerful, made me unconsciously want to get closer. Moreover, a long time ago, I had already seen him. When I first came to this city, my wallet was snatched at the station. I had nothing on me. After reporting the case, it started to rain. I was extremely down and out and cried a great deal. He drove by me and said slowly, where are you going? I'll give you a ride. Of course I didn't dare to get into his car. He was also very patient and persuaded me patiently. I'm not a bad person. Trust me this once. Stop crying. Okay? Later on, I had always wanted to thank him. But we never met again. There are so many people in this city. It's really a difficult thing to meet once and have a few words. Not long after that day, we got together. When my roommate knew about this, she was surprised for a long time. Finally, she said, dating a person like him should feel quite good, right? But I heard that none of his relationships with his girlfriends lasted more than half a month. Just enjoy the moment. I said, yes. Enjoy the moment. People are always naive at some point. At that time, I thought that in matters of love, following one's heart was all that mattered. When I liked him, regardless of his past, I only wanted to have a future with him. But later I found out that it was not the case. For example, Hansen's relationships with his girlfriends never lasted more than half a month. Why did his friends, those playboys, bet on 1 month? A long time later, I found out that the extra half month was because I resembled his first love by 3 points. Too well. More than half of them lost the bet. Because, unexpectedly to everyone, Hansen and I had a very good relationship. It was very different from his previous relationships. He was rarely so proactive. He would come to see me every day, either for lunch or dinner. Once I was extremely busy, and he waited for me at the school gate for more than half an hour. I felt embarrassed and dragged him, saying that I would take him to have a good meal. He tugged at my sleeve and held back his laughter. "Your boyfriend wants to eat at the cafeteria." After saying that, he paused for a moment and asked for my opinion. "Is it okay?" Actually, I knew that he didn't want me to go to and fro. Because before that, I had heard that when he was at school, he was so noble that he never ate at the cafeteria. As the young master of the Hansen family, he had the capital to be supercilious. We never broke up, and our relationship was surprisingly good. In the 3rd month when we were together, he moved near my school. We had more and more time to meet. He specially set up a home theater. In our spare time, we would curl up on the sofa to watch movies. He was actually not very interested in these, but I liked it. Every time he would patiently accompany me from the beginning to the end. For the movies that I particularly liked, he would seriously take notes and write movie reviews. His grandfather was a very famous painter. He had been influenced by him and studied for a few years, so he had some accomplishments. During those days, he would occasionally draw me. There was one painting that impressed me deeply. A girl was standing under a camphor tree, holding a stack of books in her arms, with delicate features and a bright and clean smile. But actually I had always wanted to ask him. At that time, when I had just met him, I was very reserved. How could I have such a bright smile? Later, one late night, it was our first time. My research project encountered some problems. After he knew about it, he patiently gave me some guidance. His fingers tapped lightly on my waist, with a carefree posture. "Understand?" I suddenly realized, and then happily hugged him back. He looked at me, his eyes gradually becoming deeper. Finally, he leaned forward. His thin lips moved slightly, and the touch was cold. He was a little nervous, but still looked nonchalant on the surface. He clenched my hand tightly. "Sienna." Halfway through, in a low voice, he brought up that painting and said, "When we first met, you were standing there, and I really wanted to take a picture." I smiled and kissed his neck, with a hidden meaning. "Did you do the same with your previous girlfriends?" Murmuring softly and lingering lie in tenderness. Talking about the scene when we first met. He clicked his tongue and pushed against me nonchalantly. "Go out and ask. Which one of them did I get this far with?" The ambiguity flowed silently. Later on, I couldn't laugh anymore. Held in his arms, I cried softly. In September in Bicheng, the autumn scenery stretched as far as the waves. There were videos everywhere on the internet of tourists going to pray for good luck. I pestered him to go with me. He stayed up for several big nights to finish the things at hand, and specially set aside a day to accompany me. On the winding mountain path, he held my hand and walked me through hundreds of stone steps, watching my every move, for fear that I would step on air while walking. But later, after leaving him, I thought again. In one's life, how could one never stumble? At that time, I really liked him. Since when did things start to change? Probably since seeing that photo. It was the 5th month since we were together. Hansen had a lot of friends. For his birthday, everyone was eager to celebrate for him. Preparations started more than 10 days in advance. I was on vacation at that time, so I joined in the fuss. With more interactions, they never avoided me when chatting. Gradually, I learned that Hansen had actually been serious about his feelings before. He proposed earnestly, chose the ring earnestly, and selected the engagement venue. Only in the end, because of a trifle, The girl still thought he didn't love her enough. After a big quarrel, both were tired. One left in a huff, and the other didn't hold back. And so they broke up. They almost got married. At the end, someone showed me the photo without any scruples. Come to think of it, you look a bit like Macy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so open-minded about you at first. In the photo, Macy was smiling brightly. She was so similar to the girl standing under the camphor tree in that painting. When I first learned about this, I just thought they were boring. Looking at it now, I think the really stupid one was actually myself. Everyone knew that he was still unwilling since his breakup with his first love. He still paid attention to her updates. Every year on her birthday, he would specially send someone thousands of miles away to give her the most precious jewels. If she had any troubles there, someone would soon tell him. Anyway, he would go there and quietly help her solve everything, without letting her know, without contacting her, but also not letting go. Only I naively thought that I was really different to him. Finally, someone said with a laugh, since Macy left, Hansen has been dating girlfriends all the time. But we all guessed that he is doing this just for Macy to come back. After that, everyone present laughed. Hansen came back after making a phone call, sat beside me, pinched my palm, and laughed softly. What were you talking about? So happy. I looked at him, feeling a chill in my heart, and said numbly, talking about your first love. He was stunned, uncharacteristically distracted. And in the end, he didn't even say that name. Just said lightly, what's the point of mentioning it? This was the first time I had the idea of breaking up with him. Actually, I should be grateful to his friends for not keeping me in the dark. Precisely because they didn't care about my feelings and told me these things, I could wake up and see the situation clearly. Let me understand that I was just a passerby in Hansen's life, a means for him to love another person. For after this day, I vaguely felt that something had changed between Hansen and me. But neither of us took the initiative to mention Macy. He also had no intention of explaining anything to me. He became more and more generous to me. He took me to various auctions. As long as I took one more look at something, soon someone would send it to me. I forgot who I heard it from. It was said that Hansen treated every girlfriend well. When breaking up, he was never stingy. Whatever the other party wanted, he would give, whether it was money or. It was a bit like a clean break. The night before his birthday, he sent someone to bring me to transfer contracts, a villa and a car. When I received them, my fingertips were cold. Then, trembling, I called him. He answered quickly. I pretended to be nonchalant and asked him, for your birthday, you give me such a big gift. Don't you think it's a loss? A loss? I like you and want to be nice to you. He replied, his tone slightly rising, with a bit of a smile, like a flirtatious tone in the heat of passion. I pinched my palm, forcing myself to be calm. These things are too precious, almost like betrothal gifts. He was silent for a long time. I pursed my lips, and tears slid down silently. Finally, his tone paused slightly, and he said casually, Sienna, don't overthink it. Go to bed early. I'll pick you up tomorrow night. Should I believe it? Was he doing these things because he liked me? Not because he wanted to break up with me? 5 the next day, Hansen came to pick me up as promised. As soon as we arrived, his cell phone rang. He looked at the string of numbers on the screen for a long time before letting go of my hand. You go in first. I'll take a call. Such a person as he was, unexpectedly, could also be so hesitant. I said okay. After going in, I randomly found a place to sit. Not long after, someone came in from outside. It's so cold outside. Who is Hansen talking to on the phone? Who else could it be? Macy. I just overheard a bit. It seems she will be back in a few days. Really? Then Hansen must be overjoyed? After waiting for so many years. When people and things finally have a good result. Whoever it is would be happy. Finally. Someone sighed. Round and round. The person beside Hansen is still Macy. It's just that at this time, everyone is reminiscing about the past and sighing over their deep affection. Which makes me, a genuine girlfriend, seem a bit redundant. Like an outsider. By the time Hansen came back, they had stopped talking about this. He pursed his lips, looking not so good, faintly a bit irritable. When he saw me, however, he concealed these emotions. He approached me, held my palm, and smiled. Did you have a good time? Later. Cut the cake with me. I said yes. After cutting the cake, I will take the initiative to break up, decently and thoroughly, and really never see each other again. 6 In the end, I still couldn't cut the cake with him, because not long after he said this, someone outside sent in a gift. It was sent by Macy. It was a wristwatch, which looked expensive. It was the brand Hansen usually used. Quite a coincidence. I also gave a wristwatch. However, I couldn't afford that brand, so I gave one with a relatively good cost-performance ratio within my ability. The one I gave, Hansen just glanced at it and had someone put it away. For Macy's one, he looked at it for a long time, so long that his hand holding the watchband turned white because of the force. His eyes were deep and a bit complicated. Finally, he raised his hand and put on that watch. Then someone took a photo and sent it to their group, saying that Macy had such good taste. And it was no wonder that Hansen had been thinking about her for so many years. I shouldn't have been able to see it. But there happened to be a girl next to me. Hansen's cousin. She was probably too excited and didn't carefully check who was beside her. She just grabbed my hand and screamed, showing me her phone. Look. They are such a perfect match. On the screen, Macy replied, as long as he likes it. You guys help me keep an eye on him, and don't let him drink too much. Then some people started to jeer and applaud. I was pushed to the back. I also applauded. There was also a card at the bottom of the gift box. The handwriting was very delicate, which read, although we are far apart, our friendship is deep. Hansen was slightly stunned, and his hand holding the card froze. Then somehow, as if he remembered something, his expression suddenly became flustered. He looked up and around, and finally, his eyes fixed, looking through the crowd at me. I smiled calmly and mouthed to him, "Happy birthday." Only then did he seem to be relieved. But he didn't call me to cut the cake with him again. He had many friends and they all had a great time. Before long, he drank too much. No one played with me, so I just watched on the side. At the end, his brother helped him go upstairs, and I didn't follow. I was ready to leave directly. For breaking up, it doesn't necessarily have to be mentioned face to face. When I was about to leave, his brother chased me down again. After looking around for a while, he found me and then stuffed a room key into my hand. He hurriedly said, "Hansen is waiting for you on the top floor. Go up and accompany him." I knew this person. His name was Jared. He was Hansen's best friend and also the one I was most familiar with among his friends. But actually, he also looked down on me, because he had always been certain that I was no different from Hansen's previous girlfriends. Just for fun and would break up soon. Not into his heart. Now that the real one was coming back. What was the use of being 3/10 similar? 7 I didn't take the room key. Amid the noise, I said, "Tell him that it's over between him and me." Jared was astonished for a moment, as if he hadn't heard clearly. The hand holding the room key also shook a little. "What did you say?" I patiently said it again. Jared frowned and looked at me for a while. "Are you serious? You know, with him, there's no such thing as regret. He never went back on his decisions. Except for Macy. Because he had been waiting for her." I nodded. With a firm voice. "Yes." He pursed his lips and looked at me for a while. "No. Things were going well. Why all of a sudden? At this point, as if he suddenly thought of something, he finally didn't ask further and nodded. All right. You can go. Don't forget to move all your things out of his house. It's not good if someone sees them. I chuckled. Okay. I was quick. That night, I packed up all my things at his place and took them away. He gave me quite a lot of things. I didn't take any of them. I also left those 2 contracts intact for him, since I had already decided to break up. Taking these things with me would only make me feel sad when seeing things related to the past, which would inevitably be a burden for me. After returning to school, I didn't think about anything and just went to sleep. I slept for a long time. When I woke up and opened my phone, I saw a message from Hansen. Only one. Sent at 10 o'clock last night. At that time, I should have just finished talking to Jared and was in a hurry to go back and pack my things. So I didn't have time to look. He said, "Come up." I glanced at the time. It was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I hadn't replied to the message for such a long time. Nor had I gone to find him. If it had been before last night, with Hansen's temper, he would surely have called me or come to find me in person. But until now, nothing had happened. It seemed that Jared had already delivered my words. He looked gentle and affectionate. But in fact, he was the coldest at heart. I had already proposed to break up, and he should have had this intention long ago. So naturally he had no objections. Wouldn't say much, let alone try to keep me. My life has returned to what it was like before I met Hansen. I received a call from my mother. I'm alone outside, and she is worried about me. So she introduces potential partners to me every now and then. She has always hoped that I can have a good marital home. After the call, she sent me a few presumably photos or contact information. Remember to add them. If there is a suitable one, give it a try. I said yes, but still didn't add them. My roommate sighed and advised me, why bother? For someone like Hansen, it's very likely that he will find a new love soon. You should also move on with your own life. Shouldn't you? I said it was not because of him. I just think that because of the disappointment in the last relationship, one rushes into the next relationship, it is irresponsible to oneself. I won't always meet the wrong people. I will get married eventually and will fall in love with someone. But I think, at least not right now. When I was 18 and just entered college, it was very difficult to meet someone new. But now it seems very easy. After the breakup, I thought that Hansen and I would never meet again. But it was such a coincidence. I went shopping with my friends. When we were leaving the mall, we happened to meet Hansen and his group. He was dressed very formally, as if he had just come from a wine party. He was in a suit and tie, and a faint woody perfume lingered on him. It was not the same brand as the one he used before. The moment our eyes met, he calmly smiled at me, nodded, and then looked away and continued talking to the people beside him. Suddenly, I felt a sense of relief. So, this is what a peaceful breakup is like. He is like this with everyone. There is no quarrel, no blame, and no estrangement. When we meet again, we are still friends. We just passed by each other like this. When I walked to the other side of the road, I suddenly received a call. It was Hansen. I adjusted the scarf around my neck while wearing my overcoat and hung up his call in the cold wind. But less than 2 minutes later, he called again. If I didn't answer, he would keep calling. Finally, I answered and called him. Mr. Hansen. There was no one talking on the other end for a long time. After a long while, just as I was about to hang up, I heard him say, "Look up, 9 across the street." I looked at the man on the opposite side. I couldn't see his eyebrows and eyes clearly, nor could I see what kind of expression was on his face at this moment. His hands were in his trouser pockets as he looked at me. I asked, "What do you want to say?" His voice was a little hoarse. After a while, he said, "Why? I thought for a while and replied, "Why did I break up with you?" He made a sound of affirmation. I was a little puzzled. For such a smart person like him, something that those around him could clearly see, he still had to ask. Why? I didn't really want to get entangled with him in this matter and replied perfunctorily. My family wants me to get married and is pushing me hard. His voice paused slightly. A few seconds later, he asked rhetorically, "Just because of this?" I sighed. Yes. He seemed to be thinking about something. After a moment of pondering, he said again, "I can be with you." I interrupted him, too lazy to say more to him. "I already have someone I'm going to marry. I heard that your first love is coming back too. Congratulations." He was silent for a while. Then the sound of a lighter being lit came from his side. After a while, he just smiled and said, "Yes." Then he asked again, as if making small talk, "You didn't take any of the things I gave you. Don't you like them? What do you like? I'll have someone send them to you again." I sighed. "No need. Don't contact me again. Let's part on good terms. Goodbye." After saying that, I hung up the call directly, without looking at him again, and turned around and left. On my way back, I blocked all of his contact information. 10 that afternoon, we went out for dinner with our supervisor. Halfway through the meal, he suddenly received a call. "I'm going out to pick someone up. He can be regarded as your senior brother. He has just returned from abroad and is also having dinner nearby." After a while, the door of the private room was pushed open. I looked up and saw the person outside the door. He had a very upright posture and an extraordinary bearing. His cuffs were half rolled up as he greeted us. Someone beside me had already started talking in a low voice. "It's Ethan. He has actually returned to China. I heard that he is very capable. He has become famous both at home and abroad at a young age and has won a lot of awards. He is the supervisor's favorite student. Not to mention anything else. He is really handsome." The atmosphere in the private room was quite good. I smiled for a while. Somehow, I thought he looked a bit familiar. After he left, not long after, my mobile phone on the table vibrated. The screen showed that I had received a message. "Sue, don't you remember me?" Strangely, I hadn't given him a note. But I just remembered. At that time, I had just graduated from college and went to a concert with my friends. When it ended, our group came out but was scattered by the crowd. I was in a hurry to find my friends. When I turned around, I accidentally bumped into someone and then sprained my ankle. That person helped me up and said in a deep voice, "Don't move." At that time, he took me to the hospital and even paid the medical bill for me. I felt embarrassed. It was clearly my own fault. But I let someone else accompany me through all this trouble. So, when I came out of the hospital, I asked him for his contact information. After transferring the money to him, I subconsciously said, "There are quite a lot of kind-hearted people in Bicheng. And they are all quite good-looking." He asked, "Oh, are there other kind-hearted people?" I said, "Yes." But I never met him again later. The man thought for a moment. "I know a lot of people. Maybe I can help you find him." But I thought for a long time, and didn't know how to describe Hansen. In the end, I just let it go. He smiled, with a calm and refined bearing. "Well, I hope that when we meet next time, you can get what you want." I chatted with Ethan on WeChat for a few sentences. When we were about to end the conversation, I thought for a while and asked him, "Are you free this evening? I would like to treat you to dinner as a thank you." He said he was. Soon we fixed the time and place. 11 after dinner. Ethan insisted on seeing me back to school, just like he had been determined to take me to the hospital in person back then. We were at a standoff on the roadside for a while, when someone walked towards us. I heard their conversation. "What's going on? Isn't Macy coming back tomorrow? Why is Brother Hansen still in the mood to hold a bachelor party here?" "I'm not sure about that. But I heard that Brother Hansen is in an extremely bad mood today. And everyone wants to cheer him up. No wonder. He hasn't smiled at all in the private room just now. They should have just come out to buy something, and were about to go back after that. One of them should have recognized me and looked back at Ethan and me several times. So Macy is coming back tomorrow. That's good. Ethan looked at me for a while and suddenly said, "By the way, I haven't asked you yet. Have you found that person?" I said yes. His gaze paused slightly and he nodded. Congratulations. I didn't say more. In the end, I couldn't out-argue him, and let him send me back. But shortly after I got back to the dormitory, I received a phone call. There was no note. And it was a local number in Bichang. I didn't think much and answered it. Surprisingly, it was Jared on the other end. His voice was very low and carried a hint of pleading. "Sienna, where are you now? I've got some trouble here. Can you come over?" I was a bit confused. "Isn't there anything you can't handle in Bichang? Stop calling me. I'm going to bed." He hesitated and finally gritted his teeth and told me his troubles. "It's Brother Hansen. On his birthday. Didn't you ask me to tell him about the breakup?" I went upstairs and told him about it at that time. He didn't say anything at that time. But he ignored me for several days afterwards. And his temper became extremely bad. I didn't figure it out at first. Until today, when something else happened. I finally realized that he was angry that I didn't keep you. I pursed my lips. "Today? What happened?" He paused for a moment and finally sighed and compromised. "I'll send you a video. You'll understand after watching it." 12 The next second, his video was sent. I clicked on it. At the beginning of the video, the whole place was being recorded. And Jared's voice could be heard. He should be reporting to his girlfriend, saying that it was quite lively and asking if she wanted to come. After a while, the cameras stopped. Someone came up to Hansen to chat and joke. And it was exactly the person I had met not long ago. He said, "Brother Hansen, I think I just saw Sienna." There was a really handsome man beside her. He said it quite casually. And the people in the place also began to gossip. Jared might have also found it interesting and said in the video, "Brother Hansen has always been happy to hear that his ex-girlfriends have found good partners in the past when they broke up. He should be able to smile this time." I thought so too. But the next moment, I heard Hansen's voice, which was bone-chillingly cold. She was the one who wanted to be together. And she was also the one who proposed the breakup. Is there such a good thing in the world? My hand paused. And I exited the video, feeling a bit restless. What did Hansen mean? Is there such a good thing in the world? Jared's voice rang out again on the other side. "Have you finished watching? Brother Hansen is really angry right now. Can you come over? Please." Suddenly, I felt very tired. There are so many of you there. Can he be sold or eaten? Anyway, isn't Macy coming back tomorrow? Just wait for her to come. Once she arrives, Mr. Hansen will surely calm down. Jared made in a truly other side. A bit at a loss. "No. You. Well, how about this? I'll go pick." Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped. There was a frictional sound in my ear, followed by a very shallow breathing sound. A moment later, someone sneered, his voice a little hoarse. "Sienna, let's talk." 13 To be honest, I didn't think there was anything left for me to talk about with Hansen. After thinking for a while, I was about to refuse. He repeated it again, his tone very calm. "Let's talk. You know me. Sometimes, when I do things, I will never stop until I reach my goal. If you don't agree to me at this moment, Sienna, I can't guarantee that I won't do something." I didn't expect Hansen would say such a thing. This side of him made me feel a bit strange. But it also seemed that it should be like this. Actually, he was originally such a person. I took a deep breath. "Okay. What do you want to talk about?" His voice was very cold. And in the night, it was a bit hard to distinguish clearly. You break up with him. We get back together. Almost instantly. I figured it out. He must have misunderstood. He thought Ethan was my fiancé. I rubbed my forehead, feeling a bit absurd. Doesn't he never take back what he has said? Holding my phone, I thought of that painting, the huge breakup fee, and the words his friends had said to me. Is it fun to play with me like this? I suppressed the irritation in my heart and cleared my throat. Are you crazy? After saying that, without waiting for his reaction, she hung up the phone. Then she also added Jared to the blacklist. I had been magnanimous enough not to argue with him about his coldness and deception. But he was so good that he actually said these inexplicable words to me instead. 14. I don't know what happened later exactly. After that, I would meet Hansen from time to time. He was a little different from before. His eyes were cold, and he became more indifferent when looking at people. Whenever we met, he always looked at me casually. I thought I had refused him clearly enough. But he deliberately blocked me in a deserted place, took out his mobile phone and showed it to me, pointing at the person on it. Is this your boyfriend? Ethan, right? How are you thinking about it? If you don't want to, I'll talk to him. I couldn't bear it anymore. You are mistaken. He is not my boyfriend. We have only met a few times, and are not familiar at all. What do you want to do? Do you have to make it so ugly? There are some words that I didn't want to say originally. You don't have me in your heart at all. Do you? Being nice to me when we were together was just because I was a bit like your first love. Now that she is coming back. You gave me a car and a house. Didn't you just want me to know my place and stop pestering you? Now you are doing this again. To be honest, it's really annoying and meaningless. Hansen was stunned, as if he didn't quite understand. What do you mean? After a while, he cursed in a low voice. When he spoke again, his voice was a little hoarse. I never thought you were alike anywhere. Who spread these rumors randomly? I'll let him come and explain clearly. Giving you things was just because I wanted to. Without any other meaning. I didn't want to break up with you. All these can be explained. My throat became a little dry. So what? Even if these were indeed my misunderstandings. But his cautiousness when answering Macy's call, and the tacit understanding among his friends. Were they all fake? No matter what he thought now. When we were still in a relationship, he indeed couldn't forget his first love. Thinking like this, I didn't want to be with Hansen even more. I asked him, do you know what you are to me now? His eyes bright and slightly. What? I smiled. After taking a bath. I will never put on dirty clothes again. What's the difference between you and dirty clothes? He suddenly took a step back. His face turned pale, and he looked at me in disbelief. His friends came over. Seeing the scene in front of them, they subconsciously persuaded me one after another. Brother Hansen misses you in his heart. These days, he has also been feeling bad. You were so good before. Is it really impossible? Why can't you talk it over nicely? I said. Yes. It's impossible. As the words fell, I suddenly remembered that not long ago, they also mentioned Macy like this. They said that Hansen and Macy were a perfect match made in heaven. How long had it been? The statements had changed. Jared subconsciously smoothed things over. Yes. Why don't I ask someone to book a private room later? Let's have dinner together and clear up the previous things. We said a lot of inappropriate things in front of you before. Those were all our wild guesses. Don't take them seriously. I shook my head. I have something to do. I won't join you. Jared wanted to persuade me again. Don't be like this. It's been a long time since we last met. Take my number out of your blacklist. I still have. Halfway through his words, Hansen suddenly said, forget it. Jared was a little unwilling. It's not easy to meet like this. I said it. Hansen looked at me and repeated word by word. Forget it. Let her go. 15 after this day. I hadn't heard from Hansen for a long time. Occasionally, I would meet Ethan instead. I accompanied him to take a walk near the school. When he was on a business trip and passed by the school, he called me. I ran downstairs out of breath. He handed me the concert tickets in his hand, saying that he got them by chance and knew that I liked the concert. So he brought them to me. The man had an elegant figure and a calm demeanor. I thought that he probably didn't know how difficult it was to get these tickets. He was always polite and knew how to act appropriately. I was too embarrassed to refuse. So I transferred the ticket money to him. He refused to accept it. I had no choice but to invite him to dinner again. As a result, when it came to paying the bill at last, it was still him who paid. At the beginning of December, he was going abroad again. For at least half a year. I deliberately went to the airport to see him off. He smiled at me, looking as if he wanted to say something but finally said nothing and turned around and left. Not long after he left, I met Jared. He sighed and told me that Hansen seldom went out to play with them now, and didn't go to find Macy either. Macy planned to get back together with Brother Hansen when she came back this time. But who would have thought that Brother Hansen doesn't pay any attention to her at all now? A few days ago, he was so annoyed by her pestering that he even put pressure on Macy's family, and asked them to marry Macy off earlier. I was like listening to a story, but they were so good before. Who knows? Love is unpredictable. Moreover, Macy grew up following Brother Hansen when she was a child. During those years when she was alone outside, even if there was no love, it was right to take care of her. I smiled and didn't comment. Actually, I had never told anyone. On Hansen's birthday, after he put on that watch, I also received a call. It was Macy who called. You are Hansen's current girlfriend, right? I heard that he treats you very differently. However, you should also know that we were almost getting married. Over the years, we have never forgotten each other. I looked at the man chatting and laughing not far away. The tears on my face had long been dried by the wind, and I would never cry for him again. I said, then I wish you to be together forever. But now it seemed that my blessing had failed. 16. It's also very funny to mention it. I didn't expect that the next time I heard the name Hansen was from one of my junior schoolgirls. She didn't know where she had seen Hansen once. And then she found out that I had been in a relationship with him before. So she deliberately came to me and asked me for advice on how to pursue the third young master of the Hansen family. I heard that he has never had a girlfriend since he broke up with you. Senior, could you teach me? How did you manage to win his heart? I was busy at that time. Didn't they all say that he was easy to pursue? Just create some chance encounters, and meet him a few more times. After hearing this, she said, I see. Soon. I forgot about this matter. But not long after that, she came to me again, crying heartbreakabik. He is not easy to pursue at all. In the past half month, I've tried every day to show up in front of him. But he didn't show me the slightest kindness. He even told me to get lost today. I was a little surprised. Did you say something? Or did you do something? Otherwise, with Hansen's temper, he should not have said such a thing. She stopped crying and said a grieved lie. Nothing much. I just mentioned you, saying that all I did was taught by you. When Hansen and I broke up, it was very unpleasant. It's normal that he doesn't like to hear my name. That night, I was about to go to bed. Suddenly, my mobile phone screen lit up. It was a text message from an unfamiliar number. The familiar tone was very cold, but still a little cynical. If you dare to teach others to pursue me again, just try. I thought for a moment and typed, sorry. I won't. Then there was silence on the other side. No more messages were sent. 17. Time passed quickly afterwards. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the year. I carried my luggage downstairs and walked out of the school gate, only to see a familiar car. Hansen was leaning against the car door. When he saw me, he said, let's go. I'll give you a lift. Suddenly, I remembered the first time I saw him. He also asked me like this, "Where are you going?" "I'll give you a lift." We had been together for a while. But now, it was over. I was about to refuse when the car window behind him suddenly rolled down. The girl waved at me with a big smile. "Senior. Come on. Let's go together." As she said this, she got out of the car and pulled me into it. All the way, it was very quiet in the car. Until we arrived at the airport. Hansen helped me take my things out of the car. I said thank you. He nodded. There was nothing more. Not long after I got home, my junior schoolgirl called. Don't get me wrong, Senior. He didn't come to pick me up on purpose. I just happened to see him and guessed that he might want to send you off. So I volunteered and said I could help. I was stunned for a moment. Just now, I really thought that they were together. It's okay. You don't need to explain to me. We have long been unrelated. My junior schoolgirl sighed. What a pity. What was there to be pity about? She didn't know that I was also like this before. I heard many people say in front of me that it was a pity that Hansen missed his first love. On New Year's Eve, it snowed heavily. After having the New Year's Eve dinner, I sat on the sofa and chatted with Ethan for a while. After he left, during festivals, we would occasionally contact each other and send blessings to each other. Suddenly, my younger cousin lay on the window and looked out, shouting loudly, "I've seen that car on the internet. There are only a few of them in the world. I can't believe we can see a real one here." I didn't care. Then you can look at it a few more times. The next day, I received a call from Hansen's friend. "Sienna, have you seen Hansen? It's the Chinese New Year. But he is not at home and we can't get in touch with him. He has never been like this before. We are all very worried." After hearing this, almost instantly, I thought of that car that should not have been here. 18 I looked out of the window, but didn't see that car. So I had to ask around along the road. Finally, I saw Hansen near an alley. The man was standing on the roadside. His shirt was a little wrinkled, and he didn't wear a coat. His face didn't look good. He had a cigarette in his hand but hadn't smoked it. When he saw me, he subconsciously stood up straight. I walked closer to him. "Where is your mobile phone?" He was a little at a loss. He took out his mobile phone, fiddled with it for a while, and said, "It's out of power. You should go back quickly. This is not the place where you should be." Hansen was stunned for a moment. I don't know what happened either. I just subconsciously followed. "You said before that your family urged you to get married." What you? Do you want to marry me?" "Hansen. It's impossible. All along, the person who never looks back easily is actually me. I have been stubborn since I was a child. Once I set my mind on something, I must achieve it. The same is true for getting over someone." He looked at me quietly, and the corners of his eyes suddenly turned red. After a long time, as if nothing had happened, he shrugged and smiled, and said to me, "Sienna, I'm hungry and I don't have any money." I treated him to a bowl of noodles. A teen yuan. There was not much meat, but a lot of green vegetables. The steam was rising. We sat facing each other, blurring each other's faces. He ate very slowly, but he still finished it. After eating, he returned to the way I first met him. He slowly wiped his mouth with a tissue and then said, "This is really the worst noodles I've ever eaten." 19 After that, I returned to Bi Chang again. I never saw Hansen again. Originally, he and I were from two different circles. If I didn't deliberately inquire about him, it was actually very difficult to hear news about him. In the first year after graduation, I had another relationship. The other person was the director of a partner company. He had a calm personality, it was very amiable. But when we were together, it was always lukewarm. And we broke up within less than a month. In the spring of the second year, it rained in Bi Chang. I came out of the company and met Ethan. He was still carrying a suitcase in his left hand, standing in front of me, looking travel-worn. He smiled at me and said, "Long time no see." In the autumn of that year, we got together. He went with me to do all the things I liked. All his friends called me sister-in-law. And they were all on my side no matter what happened. We never said break up easily. We went to hang the marriage fate tags on the tree together. One tag with both of our names written on it. After writing, he meticulously added, "Never forget each other for a long time." He held my hand and walked back. He smiled and said, "How wonderful." I said, "Yes." 20 Suddenly I remembered one year. I knelt on the prayer mat to make a wish. There were so many wishes that I counted them carefully in my heart one by one, for fear of missing any of them. That person just stood beside and watched me. Finally, he helped me up and said casually, "Tell me what you want. It's faster than this." He had never believed in these things. But when we left the temple and were far away from the incense, he sighed softly and said a sentence. I remembered that sentence for many years. He said that meeting me was actually the greatest luck in his 3 lifetimes. 3 lifetimes. 3 lifetimes. 3 lifetimes. 3 lifetimes. 3 lifetimes.